What's up, guys? Welcome to the Brushfire Project. Today we're going to be doing a quick optics comparison video between the new Leupold Mark 5 2-10 with the CMR-Mil reticle and the Vortex Razor Gen 3 1-10 with their EBR-9 reticle. Let's get into it. All right, guys, before we get into this, I just want to talk about briefly what this video is and what it's not. This is a comparison video. It's not a review. It's not an in-depth review. I'm not doing drop tests. I'm not checking to make sure turrets track true or anything like that. This is purely a comparison of features and specs on two optics that have a lot of similarities and also some distinct differences. So throwing that out there. Second, I'd like to mention you're going to see in some of this footage some shots that make it look hazy, or where you've got some weird glare going on, or blurring edges or chromatic aberration or whatever. I just want to mention that is not reflected in these optics. That is a reflection of my ratchet camera setup. And just stacking lenses and getting some weird effects out of that. So no matter which optic you're looking at through a camera, like, they are both great and they both look better than what you're going to see in this footage. That being said, the difference in quality is there. Like, when you're comparing the footage from the 1-10 versus the Mark 5, you are going to notice some differences in quality, and those are very real, but they're not as exacerbated as it appears to be in the footage, if that makes sense. So there's that. Next, I want to talk about the price range of these optics. I am very well aware these are not entry-level budget optics. These are both pricey. That being said, they're both really nice optics. Are there nicer ones out there? Yes, there are. But these are in a very similar price range. The Mark 5 is running right about $2,600. The Vortex is rocking $2,500 or something like that. So they're very similar in price point, but they are both very expensive. If these optics are beyond your current budget constraints, then I would encourage you to look at something like the Vortex PST Gen 2 2-10 if you're looking for a dedicated SPR optic, or if you're looking for an LPVO, something like the Vortex Strike Eagle or the Vortex Viper primary arms. There's a ton of great optics out there. I'm not going to name them all, but there are other options that are well below this price point where you can still get a very good product. It's not going to be as good, and I'm not recommending necessarily any of those optics because I don't have experience with them, or at least I have very minimal experience. But I do know there's a lot of people out there who have used them with good effects. So take that for what it's worth. That's my take on that. Talking about these optics and their dedicated purposes. So I've had the Vortex for about 5 years now. I beat the crap out of it, and it has held up really well, and it's done exactly what I want it to for the kind of rifle that I typically run it on. That's just a general purpose rifle. This is just a plain Jane 16-inch rifle. Only add-ons is a suppressor and a weapon light. So this rifle's main purpose is to shoot anywhere from 5 meters to 200 meters and to do it really fast and accurately. But I also wanted the ability to reach out to 4, 5, maybe even 600 meters if I needed to. And this optic is capable of that. Hey, Sasha. Hey there. You want to be in the video too? No, go on. Go on. Go. So this optic fills that role really well, but it does have some shortcomings when it comes to shooting at greater distances. And we'll talk about those more as we get into the Mark V. So transitioning over the Mark V, it does have a 2x base magnification. So if you're trying to shoot really fast and accurate up close, it's going to be a little bit trickier to get used to than something like the 1:10, which is a true 1x. Can you do it? Yeah, you can, but you're probably not ever going to be as fast as you could with something like a 1:10. That being said, when you're talking about that 200 to 600 meter range, this scope excels. It has the exposed elevation turret, so if you have the time, I'm a big holdover guy. I use holdovers for almost everything, but every now and then I find myself in a situation where I'm like, you know what, it'd be really nice to have a really precise aiming point and know that I'm going to not be having to hold in between 1/2 mil hashes. And so this does that for you. It also has the adjustable parallax on the side. So whenever I'm shooting at distance, I can ensure I've eliminated parallax from my sight picture, and I'm not going to be having misses due to an improper alignment of my eye with the ocular lens. With the 1:10, you know, sometimes we're not in a perfect shooting position. We're not always shooting distance in the prone from a bipod with a sandbag. Sometimes we're shooting off a barricade or a barbed wire fence, or we're laying down shooting sideways under a truck, or we're shooting canted off a tripod shooting through a porthole or something like that. And we may not be able to ensure that our eye is perfectly aligned to that ocular lens. And so if that's the case you find yourself in, then having the ability to adjust your parallax and make sure your reticle and your target are on the same focal plane, so that no matter where your eye is at in that eye box, you know you're going to have an accurate impact. If you have a miss, then you know, hey, that was an elevation error or a windage error on my part. That wasn't anything to do with the optic or an error of head positioning. So that's an important distinction between these two optics when you're talking about their purpose. This is not made to be super fast for up close shooting. It is capable of it, but that's not its main purpose. This one can, and that is its main purpose, but I can also shoot 500 or 600 meters with this guy. So it's worth making that clarification before we get into it, because there's not a clear winner overall for either of these optics. They excel at doing different things. And I think that's important to keep in mind as you move forward for the rest of the video. So with that, we'll go ahead and get into some of the footage we took through each of these optics in some different lighting conditions, behind some different night optics, and at different ranges. And after that, I'll let you tell me what you think about it. So with that, let's get into it. All right, starting off with the Leupold Mark V, we're zoomed into 10x with a little bit of additional zoom from my camera. That red blur you're seeing is not noticeable to the shooter. That's just artifact from my camera. And this is on a 1-inch black square at 100 meters. This is zoomed out to 10x, and this is what it would look like to the shooter's eye. Moving out to 6x, still got nice detail, good crisp edges, and good colors. And now we're magging all the way out to 2x. The blur you're seeing on the edges of the image are just due to me stacking the lenses of my camera and the optic. That's not noticeable. You have good edge-to-edge clarity from the shooter's position. And once you turn that reticle illumination on, as you can see, it's nice and bright. You have a good, crisp aiming point. Now moving to the Vortex. Again, this is at 10x with a little bit of additional zoom on my camera, showing that reticle. It's a little bigger, but the semi-translucent nature means you can still get a good refined aiming point. This is at 10x as the shooter would see it. This is magged out to 6x and coming on all the way down to 1x. It's also worth noting the blur and the haze that you're seeing in the optic, different magnifications, is not something that the shooter notices at all. It's just due to stacking lenses and the way that light's bouncing off of them. It's very crisp and clear to the shooter's eye. And when you turn that reticle on, as you can see, it's nice and bright. No issues picking that up whatsoever. Now we'll do a little test and see how these optics do zooming in and out on objects at different distances. So this tree is at 50 meters. Get that parallax adjusted. Image becomes nice and crisp, really refined lines. Zooming out and moving over to a target at 300 meters. And once we get zoomed in and get that parallax adjusted, you can see the words on that sign really crisp up. No issues reading them. Really clear, crisp image. Doing the same test with the Vortex 1 to 10, starting on 1x, zooming into 10x on the same tree. Still a very good quality image. Maybe not quite as clear as the Leupold, but still very nice. Zooming out and back in on the target at 300 meters. Still a good image, pretty clear, but not quite as crisp as with the Leupold Mark V. It's not necessarily blurry, but the lines and edges just aren't quite as sharp. Now we'll move over and do a comparison of these two optics behind a thermal. This is the Guide Thermal USA TB1250. Zoomed in at 10x. This is down to 6, and then 3, and then all the way down to 2. And as you zoom out, you can see those pixels become less noticeable. When you zoom in, the image does become pixelated to a certain extent, but still very usable at 10x. And this is the Vortex, using the same thermal clip-on optic. I did notice that the Vortex seemed to have a little bit better clarity and a better picture than the Leupold at all magnifications. I'm not sure what that was about, but it was something that I noticed. Very usable image at all magnification ranges. I found that 5x for both optics was probably the most optimal as far as a little bit of magnification and being able to have excellent resolution with minimal pixelation on the image of the target, and that is a 66% IPSC at 100 meters. All right, looking at the Mark V behind the PVS-24. We're zoomed in at 10x right now, and as you can see, it's pretty dark, but as we zoom out, that image brightens significantly. This is with no supplemental illumination, just a bright full moon and no clouds. So I actually had to adjust my camera to darken the image because once I zoomed out to 2x, it actually washed the image out significantly. But then as we zoom back in, we'll add some supplemental illumination, and that'll give you an idea of what you can expect from this guy if you're using an infrared illuminator. All right, now the Vortex, you can see that image is a little bit darker than the Leupold, and this is even with my camera settings adjusted to make that image brighter. I don't think the Vortex does quite as good of a job at gathering light as the Leupold, but as you zoom out, it becomes a very pleasing image behind the camera and to the shooter's eye. And then as we zoom back in, you can see that illuminator from the PEC 15 really brightens the image. You'd have no issues using this optic with the Vortex with an IR illuminator. All right, guys, so that's the footage we were able to get out of these two optics through some different night optics and in some different lighting and target conditions. Let me know what you think down in the comments. If you haven't already, please hit that like and subscribe button. It helps the channel grow. Appreciate it. And as far as my final thoughts go on each of these optics, I think it's pretty clear to me that the Mark 5 2-10 is a fantastic SPR optic. If you're building out a rifle that's purpose is primarily shooting from that 100 to maybe 600 meter range, especially in a 5.56 caliber or something similar, then I think it's pretty hard to beat the Mark 5. The optical clarity, the color, the definition, along with the adjustable parallax and the exposed elevation turret, those are all things that to me are kind of must-haves for a SPR dedicated optic. It does still give you the ability to shoot pretty fast up close with a 2X, but when it comes to an optic that's more for that 5 to 150 meter or 200 meter range, I don't think there's anything better out there right now than the Vortex 1-10. It's a true 1X, and as a rifle that needs to be capable of shooting extremely fast and accurately when seconds count, but also have the capability to reach out 4, 5, maybe even 600 meters, it fills that role very well. In the end, no matter which one of these optics you go with, you're going to be happy. They're both awesome. I'm never going to sell this guy. It's one of my favorite optics that I've ever owned, but I am probably going to be looking to pick up one of these when I can afford it, because I don't think that there is an optic out there that suits this rifle better. I think also it's worth noting that, as I mentioned earlier, these are expensive optics. And if you're not in the price range, if these optics aren't in your price range, then it might be worth looking at something like the Primary Arms 1-8 or the Vortex Strike Eagle 1-8. I don't have any real experience with those optics, so I'm not going to recommend them, but I know they're out there and I know some people use them with good results. So if this optic is outside your price range or out of your budget, maybe look at something like that. There's a ton of 1-8s and 1-10s, 1-6s out there right now, and there's a lot of really good ones that are less expensive than this one. As far as the 2-10s, if you can't afford or don't want to spend the money on something like this, take a look at the Vortex Viper PST Gen 2. It's a 2-10, has a lot of the same features. I think there's some shortcomings just based on the specs that I've looked at, but I don't have any experience with it. So if somebody does, please let me know in the comments and let me know what your experience has been. But that's pretty much it, guys. And I appreciate you tuning in. I appreciate you if you made it this far. Thank you for supporting us. And feel free to ask any questions down in the comments. I'll get to them as soon as I can. Let me know what kind of content you guys want to see moving forward. I haven't been able to post very much recently. I've had a lot going on, but moving forward, I'm trying to fix that and start pushing out content a little bit more regularly to you guys. So let me know what you guys want to see in the comments, and I'll try to make that happen. Until then, stay safe, train hard.